I say to project managers, what part of those accountabilities can you help fill in and help us move forward on? Because you absolutely have a role, especially in a large scale organization, because someone's got to know where all the bodies are buried and where all the things are and all the people to speak to. So you're very valuable. So help us.
Right. So welcome to the Agile Chef. Today I'm going to be chatting to Andy Spence, who has over 25 years of IT experience, and he's got a special focus on Agile frameworks and tools and technologies. Makes up about 15, 16 years of that time, I think, Andy.
Yes, right.
Yeah, nice one. And Andy is an Agile coach. He's a professional Scrum trainer and business transformation expert. Andy, you drive a lot of transformations and trying to increase value and delivering sort of value to companies and organizations. So I think the questions I'm going to be asking you today is around scaling agility, scaling Scrum in particular, actually. So we're going to cover the key challenges in implementing Scrum in a large organization. We're going to chat about ensuring alignment and communication across multiple teams. So how do we do that? And then we're going to talk about strategies for scaling Scrum at an organization, and the role of leadership, which is quite pivotal, I think, in those sorts of things. Andy, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much, Omar. I really appreciate you having me here. Hope I'll be of some benefit to your channel and your listeners, and maybe I'll even learn some stuff from myself, and definitely want to learn some stuff from you as we go through this journey together.
Super. Thank you very much, Andy. It took us quite a while to get here, didn't it? We've been trying to schedule and reschedule for a good couple of months at least. I think we're finally here.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to be. It's nice to actually take a break from the world of life and come and just chill and have a good conversation with you, Omar. So I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, Andy. And I know you're super busy. You're working full time. You're also a family man. So I really appreciate your time.
No worries at all. Thanks for having me.
All right, buddy, let's kick off with the first question. What are the key challenges from your experience and from what you've observed? What are the key challenges in implementing Scrum in a large organization?
I mean, usually why you're called in as an Agile coach or someone in transformation to these large organizations is they usually have, it's usually the same story, if I'm totally honest. It's like things aren't going quick enough. It's usually something around speed, right? You Agile people, you're going to make me faster, right? Something along those lines. Sometimes we'll get things like we don't feel our staff are engaged enough, or you'll get some leaders who prefer collaborative teams, or have been at places where things are more collaborative and they've come to a new organization and maybe things are a bit more hierarchical and command and control. So you'll see some of that. Sometimes staff retention issues that happens. Maybe it's they're losing customers. Maybe that's the number one reason, but something along those lines. It's usually if you get to the nitty gritty, like that is really where the heart of the transformation is coming from. And number one is to start with the why. And often, if we don't start with why, what it is that you're expecting Agile to help you with, and really nailing that down, you do get people who sometimes like, I had Agile at this organization, I don't have Agile at this organization, therefore it's going to fix everything. And the motivations can be, the goal is to be Agile, right? And actually that's not it. That's part of the vehicle of getting you where you need to go to. But if you don't know why you're trying to do it, it's really, really hard. And so actually some of the challenges first off is, why are you going Agile? And if they tell me I want to go Agile because my competitor's going Agile or whatever, or we've heard it's good, like, no, I need more than that. Rather tell me about the problems and let's have a look at it. Because one of the first starting blocks is, well, Agile is by bringing in Agile ways of working, not some Agile as some moniker, some statement, right? By bringing in ways of working that are going to heighten your transparency, you reveal your problems quicker so that you can respond to them quicker. And that's one of the things to kind of.
That's spot on, mate. That's absolutely spot on. I think I totally agree with you. I think the first thing to establish is, why are you going through this? Because then you could probably start looking at, okay, what does good look like when we do that? And you start sort of establishing a real understanding of how to approach this transformation, or this sort of movement from traditional to new ways of working, So it's actually I think that's really poignant. So the first thing you want to do is you want to establish that. So what kind of resistance are you seeing resistance when that?
Well, that's of course this is very natural. The resistance is very natural, very normal, and totally understandable. And I think as a coach, you need to have a massive degree of empathy for where people are at, because the problem is a lot of people will come in and say, right, I'm going to hire Andy. He's going to be my agile coach. He's going to come in and he's going to tell you how inefficient you all are, right? Like, or inefficient you all are. I know inefficient is even a word. Inefficient you all are. That's a lovely thing to tell your people, right? And you've had these people slaving away trying to figure out how to do the best they can, and now some external upstarts come on and told them they're inefficient. I mean, it's not a great way to start with people, right? But obviously, and then there's the myths and stuff, like if you're a project manager, I've been on a Scrum course and there was no project manager in the Scrum team, so that means I'm out of the door. So you can get that resistance. This is going to impact my job.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely, yeah. Because like all of a sudden you're like, oh, you're a PO, you're a Scrum Master, you're this and that, and they just
the new fresh cool is Scrum Masters and Agile coaches. The old hat is project managers. Out you go, and that's not a way to win people into an organization. I mean, one thing I always enjoyed when I went on my first ever LESS course with Craig Larman is he said it's about job safety, not role safety. And I always liked that, because and if you look at the Scrum guide now, it's about, they took roles out of there because it was all about accountabilities. Who's actually looking at these accountabilities? Who's helping us understand value and helping us go after the right things? Who's helping us understand how we're going to get the job done? Who's helping us to coordinate and get the right things around? And then I say to project managers, what part of those accountabilities can you help fill in and help us move forward on? Because you absolutely have a role, especially in a large scale organization, because someone's got to know where all the bodies are buried and where all the things are and all the people to speak to. So you're very valuable. So help us. And it's just a switch. It's a switch in the mindset from saying I have no role to actually, how can you turn this organization up to 11, or how can you enable this organization? And when you put that hat on, a lot of people go, I still have a place here and I can still operate. So kind of breaking that down is one of the first main struggles we've got, is how is the new world going to impact the old? And then there's other things, just like, listen, I mean, if you've been doing something in a particular way for the last 10, 20 years, well, when you're asked to improve and you improve inside your box, that's fine. You're going to improve inside your box, but you're always going to stick to a rough playing field of how you do things. And agility to traditional project management is very different. You know, we're not doing long-term planning before we then initiate, before we then release. We're planning, we're developing, releasing as we go. It's different. It's uncomfortable. So that's where you'll get some resistance as well. It's uncomfortable. And then the other one that I think is absolutely key that I talk to people about is, I mean, at the end of the day, the world around us is changing, right? I mean, if your viewers haven't heard this, I'm sure they have, but if they haven't, the VUCA world, right? Yeah. We've got more volatility, more uncertainty, more complexity, more ambiguity in people, in the requirements we're being asked to build, and in the amount of technologies that are being produced in order for us to deliver. So based on those things, you've got a lot of uncertainty starting to creep into the mix, and it's pushing us towards chaos. So we're definitely going to a more complex space, and we know if you want to be able to operate in complexity, you need more empirical approaches. Right? Yeah. You cannot plan your way perfectly through complexity. You've got to do a bit of probe, sense, respond. You've got to do that plan, do, check, act type of stuff, the Deming cycle, right? You've got to do that type of stuff. And so helping people get comfortable with that is a very, very important part of an agile coach's role, and helping them understand complexity. And then the other thing is it's a part of the brain that hasn't been switched on in a lot of these companies, if they've been very project led, is that discussion around value, right? It's always usually around effort, and it's usually about the delivery of the project being the success. But actually, why was the project important in the first place? What value did it add? How do you communicate that well, and how do you validate that? Right. So, you know, and that's another big piece of the puzzle. So turning on those switches sometimes causes a lot of resistance, because you're going, wait, whoa, stop, hold on, why are we doing this? I agree. And when an organization is not used to people on the ground going, whoa, why are we doing this? That it can be seen as insubordination. Yeah, so no, 100%. Having 100%. Leadership brought into that is so important, because they're going to have to help steer where we need to go, right? So yeah, so a whole bunch of facets there. I hope that made some sense to you, but those are the common struggles we have to try and face through and help people through.
Absolutely, I agree. I think, cognitively speaking, for people, you're asking them to leave everything they've known for like, all their career, and all of a sudden move on to new ways of working and a completely different mindset, a completely different approach to problem solving and things like that. And that is, I think, one of the biggest hurdles is trying to get, dare I say, to approach things in a design thinking kind of way, where you're actually exploring a lot more about what is the problem that we're trying to solve and how is it going to deliver value to our customers? How are we going to be customer centric? Most of the times we deal with engineers or designers, or and all sorts of different sort of, whether it's software, whether it's manufacturing, and then you approach them and you say, okay, well, define the problem before you go into solution mode, and then what's the value? Okay, and you're trying to get the business leaders to articulate the vision and things like that. And if these are things that are design thinking that not necessarily many of those companies have been doing, especially those big organizations. And I think, like you said, this is a really key sort of challenge in approaching the transformation, the sort of moving into new ways of working. So in terms of Scrum specifically, when we're talking about Scrum and scaling Scrum, we look at sort of, these guys are used to working in their own lanes, so silos. How do we sort of get these departments to communicate better?
Well, and actually, you've actually tacked onto another struggle, right? That actually, so before I go into that, the answer on that, the other struggle is organizational design. Often is another big one. I've been at large media broadcast companies where you've got a separate product division to a separate tech division, and where the two meet, it's like it's trying to get them to work together is a very, very hard thing, because they have their set ways of working, they have their set ways of working, and they have two separate backlogs of work. Yet this one feeds into this one, and they expect their work done, and they are also trying to maintain the organization. So that's a really, really hard one. And unfortunately, that requires, again, leadership coming to the party and going, how do we share? Yeah, how do we collaborate more? And it means egos need to be humbled, and it means people need to kind of come in and go, right, how do we start working together? And I mean, for Scrum, for scaling Scrum, I mean, listen, let's look at the heart of Scrum, what it was all about. I mean, if we go back to, I know Scrum kind of came before the Agile Manifesto was officially coined in 2001, but one of the key principles of it was the business and developers working daily together throughout the project, which was one of the Agile principles. And obviously, Scrum tried to solve this by saying, well, your product owner is that business representative inside the team, that someone trusted from the business to represent the requirements, the desires, everything that's needed for this particular product. And we trust this person to make those calls moving forward. But they're part of the Scrum team. They're not separate from the Scrum team. And this still goes on to even in Agile organizations where I see a Scrum team, they call themselves a Scrum team or a squad or something like that, but the product owner sits over here somewhere. And it's like, and you're going, and is your product owner in your retrospective? No, we wouldn't do that. Like they're still separate somehow. They're not actually part of the team. And because of maybe some of these organizational designs where product is separate from tech, and maybe there's literally a finance function which actually puts that product person under a different project and puts them under a different project, so they can't share the time. And there's things I see like that. So actually, part of the blockers in the finance department, you got to go and talk with them. So it's an interesting one, but the Scrum was very key. It was bringing those things together so that we're having the right discussion of why, what, and why, and how, right? But they're making sure that the respect between those two was married. And I just ran a product ownership course the other day where we were talking to the product division, who are separate from their technology team, and they're going like, how do we communicate with these people better? How do we interact with them better? I'm like, well, you've got to start somewhere. You've got to start making those connections and making those alliances. Create some form of mechanism where you're speaking to them more regularly than you are. you may have to work with them on how they articulate their requirements, so those technical requirements. But they'll also remember you actually really want to see what their technical backlog looks like, because your product backlog is going to be impacted by whatever they're working on here, technical debt or product improvements, or platform improvements, or whatever they may be. You may not get your thing this side because they've got to work on those things. So you're going to have some kind of negotiation or discussion about how you barter and trade. And if you're not going to come to that party and you're just going to force your requirements on them and hold them to deadlines that they can't keep, you actually create separation. You don't bring things closer together. And one of the biggest complaints I see from organizations when they come to me, they go, we keep selling things that we can't commit to. We keep committing to deadlines we can never meet. Right, and that's not fun, and the developers absolutely loathe it. They like thank you for the hospital pass product team. Great, we don't have time to get that done, and they down tools and they work weekends. They get things across the line in poor quality or just about whatever that may be, and they're all high-fiving because they got it done. But they want to leave the company 3 months later because they're burnt out because they can't keep doing this. And the product department keeps saying, well, tech never tell us what they're working on. And there's this like low transparency. And then the tech teams put up all the buffers. They put in a technical product owner to stop the product owner from talking to them because, I've got my stuff to do. And they shut shop and transparency depletes. And we end up in something. And you just made me think of something. Another thing that often gets forgotten about, I've heard this a lot of times. Like when I come in and try and implement Scrum, they go, yeah, but Andy, that's just delivery. That's just delivery. That Scrum is just delivery. And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting point of view, because actually, well, you've got an intake somewhere. There's somewhere you're getting the demand. That's part of it. That's your product backlog. That's management of your product backlog. You got to get your pipeline built into that, because it's all part of the same thing. And so that's some of the myths I see about it. That Scrum is just for the delivery team. It's just for the team that's delivering the work. Actually, that's that's why the product owner was part of it, because it was supposed to be about the end to end.
Yeah. So about the stakeholders, about all the business needs. Goodness. Yeah. So Andy, we've spoken about the sort of like the challenges. We've touched up on ensuring alignment and communication across multiple Scrum teams. What's some good practice that you've seen or implemented to get over some of those issues?
I tell you what, I mean, communication is an interesting one, because it varies per organization I go to. It depends on the communication mechanisms they have in place, the people that they have communicating, and it varies in many ways. And so I've seen a lot of organizations like tackle this in different ways, because you've seen the elements of sheep dip training, right? So we're going to teach everyone about Agile. Right, but obviously we need to keep the organism running. So we're going to teach everyone. We're going to put everyone on a Scrum class, like on a PSM or a CS.
That'll fix everything. 2 days.
Yeah, but the problem is you don't want to disrupt flow of work. So what you do is you take 2 team members from team A and 2 team members from team B and C, and you put them on the course so that those teams can still keep running whilst the people on the class, right? Yeah. And then by the time those 2 team members come back to their teams, they go, hey, we learned about this new cool thing with Agile Andy and his amazing class or whatever. And the team are going, yeah, that's great. We got stuff to do. And so by the time that they've tried to implement anything, it's either been half-assed or it's not happened at all. And then it's run around, and it's very expensive, right? And then Agile doesn't work because no one actually implemented it properly, and that's not great. So that's another way. Sometimes then it's just like overview sessions, which is fine, but it's kind of a bit of everything all at once. And the main thing is, if you're going to take these things, I wholeheartedly believe in small and incremental change over time. I think most Agile coaches I know will say the same thing. So pick parts of the organization, or pick a value stream and go after and get it shaped and work on it. Now the downside to that is obviously you're going to have other parts that aren't getting that Agile love, and you get this organizational envy, and then you get a what about us type of thing. And it's kind of like that's where leadership needs to help manage and support and do some things. And then you get your ratios of how many coaches you bring in and too many, too little, and too many is you're overcooking it. Too little, and it doesn't get enough inertia, and then the board gets upset because we're not implementing fast enough. So it's never easy to answer the communication question. Storytelling, keeping people updated regularly, letting people know where they are in tranche. If you can do roadmaps and things like that, try and just at least forecast goal-wise where you're trying to get and where you want to get to, can help, and that messaging is very, very important. But one of the most helpful tools I've found recently, just at least for coordinating and connecting your strategy, your leadership through to where you are making these changes is, I mean, it's just something I've found very helpful, is in the flight level system, Klaus Leopold's flight levels. I found that very, very helpful. But I'm not even looking at wholesale flight level Kanban systems in place. I'm talking about just the very principles of connecting organisms to one another in a different shape, right? And it's like it's putting an inspect and adapt cadence around all the areas that are going to impact you, at least in your first tranche. So if you're going to take on one value stream in your organization, obviously, and we're saying inspect and adapt cadence, so Scrum is very helpful. If you've not got anything in Scrum, it's very helpful. We can look at a Scrum system around maybe the value stream of this particular department, or this particular product that you're trying to shape, right? This is all the rage right now, product shaping and product, the product operating model and all that stuff, right? But pick one part, pick one value stream, maybe get Scrum around that if that's helpful to you. If you've not done Agile before, it's very, very helpful because it can help you get the training wheels that you need, okay? And so, but then you can't just do it to that department. What are the departments that sync into that? Like your finance, your HR, your legal, your audit potentially, or maybe your IT help desk, your data. Often these large organizations, they have a separate data division. It's not usually actually baked into their team. So at least connect them with some form of cadence where they're checking in regularly with each other, and they themselves, those departments themselves, are at least retrospecting and doing something to check in on continuous improvement. Just those small things, like, and if your CTO function or your technical function is the one that implements it, then make sure there's a leadership cadence around there, that they're working as well in a way that can inspect and adapt and respond to change more accordingly. So one thing I found recently is what we tried is we tried 3 value stream pilots. We connected the senior leadership team to that, and we created coordinating flight levels around that to help that, and made sure there was a communication mechanism throughout, and there was no hierarchy involved. It was when you couldn't solve a problem at one layer, it went to the next, and then they could help, and if it couldn't, then the leadership could deal with it. And we found that very, very helpful. And it's a very, very simple implementation of flight levels. There's probably flight levels people watching this going, geez, that's not how it works, but that's such a simple layer. And the reason why I found it very helpful is keeping things very simple, especially in large organizations. It's been very helpful for them to navigate what they need to do. Amazing. So I'm not talking to them about pull systems. I'm not talking to them about work in progress limits yet. What I'm just doing is just let's get some visualization, make sure you're doing inspection, adaptation at each layer, and let's see what we're learning. And they need help coordinating that. So you need people at each layer to help you coordinate that stuff. And that's first tranche. And when you think about actually small and incremental, that's still a large piece of the organization you're trying to get involved.
So basically you're saying approach agile transformations in an agile iterative way. Go ahead.
You cannot traditionally project manage or waterfall your way to agile is kind of my approach, my way of saying it, right? And I want to say waterfall, I mean the traditional waterfall, right? At the end of the day, waterfall is just sequencing, but it's reducing those sequences and bringing them closer together. But it's that you can't plan and manage this thing perfectly. It's a complex beast in its own right and needs its own inspection and adaptation around it.
Totally. And Andy, what's flat level system? I mean, is that when you talk about a network? So it's like a flat structure rather than a hierarchy.
It's hierarchy. I'm not even. It's not flat structures like no one has. Like I mean, we need to be realistic. Like these organizations do have hierarchy in them, and some people believe in flat structures. And I'm less fussed on that. I'm more about where can I find the right level of leadership and emergent leadership and the right type of leadership to help us through this. Yeah. Right, and that's leadership kind of flipping their heads from why wasn't this done to how can I help. It's a completely different thing when leadership approach the party like that. because you're raising transparency. And do you know what? People don't like transparency being raised when they've come from a traditional organization, because they don't trust what you're going to do with that transparency. And this is the thing about growing trust in an organization. It's got to work both ways. So the manager needs to flip going. I was the manager that used to go, where's my thing? Why haven't you done it? Where's the status? And now that same leader turns around next week and goes, hey, how can I help you guys? And they're going, what are you up to?
Like, where's the psychology?
What do you want from me? Like, you know, it's and that doesn't change overnight. And that's why, again, I love Scrum for this, because then you can say, hey, listen, how can we build trust in 2-week iterations? What can we do what can I hand over to you for 2 weeks that I trust you enough with, that you can run with? In 2 weeks' time, if we check in and it's not right, I can work with you on it, right? Like, so that those small experiments to grow and build trust I really like, but bringing leadership to the party is really, really important.
Amazing. We kind of, I love this, because we're covering all 4 questions that I had for you. So the role of leadership in successful agile adoption, and
they all go hand in hand. There is no kind of separate dichotomy of it, because I think when I'm thinking about, if you want true enablement, agile enablement, I hate the word transformation. It's a bit of a,
like, are you a butterfly? Are you a caterpillar?
Yeah, it's exactly right. You're done now, and that's one of the struggles I have, is because they think like, great, I'm now agile. So no, you're not. You're not. Are you learning more frequently? Do you have systems in place that allow you to inspect and adapt more frequently? Then, if that's your definition of agile, fine. Then I'm saying, well, then have you built the foundations to navigate through change more effectively and stop resisting it? Then yes. And what I'm not, I don't know if I didn't coin the term, but it's just, we talk about this, we call this enablement at Merapar. And it's part of our goal is to enable the organization to be able to turn on a dime for a dime, to quote some of the less training, and to respond to change more readily, and to stop resisting it. And so are you enabling parts of the organization to do that? And as a leader, as a project manager, as a program manager, are you doing that, or are you just are you asking for reports and statuses, and that's your job? Like, because if that's the case, it's very hard to work with people like that. I want to flip you out of that and say, right, okay, if it's only at 50%, you're not happy with it, then what can you do? Can you come step down and help us move it, get it moving? That's what I need you to do as a PMO or project manager.
Amazing, thank you, Andy. How about some strategies for scaling Scrum in an enterprise or in a large organization? What have you found useful? What's worked for you?
It's going to sound a bit cliche, and it's pretty much the first lesson you'll get on a Nexus course, or a scaling professional Scrum course, or a less course, and it's the first rule of scaling. It is don't scale, right? It sounds a bit naff to someone listening to it. What do you mean? Like, you know, but at the end of the day, rubbish, you can bleep me out here, but shit scales, right? If you put crap in, you're going to get more crap when it scales, right?
Yeah.
And so one of my first strategies, and one of the first things we look at is to descale, right? Because often what we find is
controversial, Andy, controversial.
And by the way, this is not Andy's advice. You've gone, like I said, you've gone a scaling professional Scrum course or a less course. That's the first thing they tell you. Apart from maybe if you go on a safe course. Now, listen, to any safe people watching this, I haven't been on a safe course, but I've been through enough safe transformations, and I have not enjoyed them, because it comes down to there's 2 different types of scaling. You've got subtractive scaling and you've got additive scaling, right? And what's a lot of people will do with safe is they use it as apply and subtract what you don't need. Now, for me, I find that incredibly expensive. I find that incredibly risky. And I'm not saying all safe people do this, but this is what I have seen when I've witnessed safe implementations. It's let's get the diagram up and running, right? And that's a big mission. That's a big transformation, and that's very costly, very effective. And then finally, now we've got the release trains, and now we've got the PI plannings in place, and we've got all the different roles in place, and the different Kanban systems and Scrum systems in place across the organization. Now, what do we need?
Yeah.
And I think that's just, I think it's very risky, very expensive. And personally, in 5 organizations I've personally been at where there's been safe, it's not been a success. Right. But then you could equally argue the other way. Anyone who's done an agile transformation, there's a lot of large organizations that haven't had a great deal of success, or they've had pockets of success. So you can argue the same way. But it's just, for me, I prefer to look at what do we have now? Where are there maybe bottlenecks in the system, and how can we try and find better ways of communicating, working? So example, especially in traditional organizations, what you'll see, especially when they've got a large PMO structure, when a request comes in, there's someone who's managing the flow of the work, the intake, the requests. If you've got separate departments, there's someone actually managing maybe the flow, someone managing the people inside the product requirements division. There's resource managers looking after the people across the technical division, and maybe even in the product division. Then you've got people coordinating maybe one part of the project that this person's working on. And so you've got all these people talking to each other just to probably actually coordinate one or two people who are doing the work.
Yeah.
And I find that when you look at that, when you actually map that out, that is incredibly wasteful, right? But it's there because it's how the system works, and because you've got multiple projects on the go at once, you do need all these people to coordinate all that effort to be able to pull John back from project 1 and put him on project 2 because that one's now suffering. And I get why it's there. But when you start, this is why the product operating model, product-centric shaping is becoming popular, is because actually when we start looking how we consolidate under one value stream, we start seeing those projects as items of work on a product backlog, and you bring the work to the people, not the people to the work. And so when you can try and look at descaling from that perspective, actually you realize you can do a lot more with a lot less. And we've seen this time and time again. And obviously this can threaten organizations, because if you've built up these positions and you've built up all these things to basically justify your existence, it's very, very hard. And listen, sometimes tough decisions do need to be made, but it's not the first call. It's not the first call isn't right. You need to get rid of all these people. The first call should be, how can we get these people working in the system in a different way? How can we leverage their skills in a different way, right? Before you go hitting the end on cord and saying we need to get rid of people, right? And listen, it's tough. It is tough, and it's all about attrition in many ways, in respects, because if an organization has become bloated in process and people, they're going to have to make a decision. It's tough. It sucks. I don't like being there, but it's part of business.
I see what you mean now by descaling rather than scaling up. That makes a lot of sense, actually. So how does that affect the dare I say the middle management layer, which is kind of where the communication stops?
It proposes a challenge, and it can create shutdown, and this is where you see a lot of resistance. You will see a lot of resistance. Go, hang on, but that was, say, my job to do that. Like, what do you mean? Like, let's think about it very clearly. Your product shapes something, right? You build a core team around a product. You build a product owner who can work with maybe depending on how big the product is, but maybe they've got a product team around them, and there's maybe 3 or 4 people around them helping coordinate and manage their finances. 1 or 2 Scrum teams, let's just say 1 for simplicity of this argument. And these people are dedicated now to this product. Well, you've just said to a resourcing manager, like, they can sort themselves out. We know who's in that team. We've simplified that. Now that resourcing manager, that was their job, to resource people. Now that's going to feel uncomfortable. And what I've seen when we try to do the descaling model is the first thing I want to do is we need to have a role for every person. And that can be really tough. And I know anyone watching this goes, oh, thanks, Andy, that's me out of a job. But we at the end of the day, I hate to say it, folks, we live in a capitalist society, and if you don't make money, you don't make bread. And that's just where we are. And companies will come to that point, whether it's through Agile or not, right? If they're going to find natural attrition somehow, if they're being wasteful in how they manage themselves. And listen, there's certain parts of the organization, of certain organizations, where if it's not a complex domain, it is quite simple work. Maybe sometimes in infrastructure building and things like that. Then please keep the show rolling on. That's fine. But what we are finding more increased complexity, which means we need to have more adaptive systems, and we need more emergent leadership, and we need more teamwork, and we need more cross skills. So one of the things I offer to people like that, if you are the resource managers, but how can you expand out? What can you do with the knowledge that you have to actually enable teams and work with teams and pick up maybe new skills that can actually keep you safe in your role, right? Yeah. Because the world is changing. We've got AI coming. That's also going to present a whole new bunch of changes for a whole lot of people. And listen, it's the way that the world is rolling, right? It's going to present us with a lot of challenges.
Yeah, and like, just, it's an interesting comparison. Like AI, if you if you understand it, you can use it to improve wherever position you're already in. It's a bit like that with agility. If you understand, what framework you're working on, or just that, that mindset, you're able to contribute and you become more valuable towards what your company and organization is trying to achieve.
Oh, yeah, I think Jeff Sutherland might have said it, but he said I think it was him who quoted it. He said it's AI will not take your jobs. It's people who learn how to use AI that will take your jobs. If I think I've quoted it right, but either way, the statement rings true. And it's part of the challenge. Sorry, you were going to ask me another question there.
No, do you know what? I was going to wrap it up because I know we're both time sensitive. It's been really, really amazing just listening to you and the way that you're articulating certain problems and coming up with some solutions. It's been amazing. I just wanted to thank you so much. And my last question is, what's on your continuous learning journey? What are you up to these days? What are you reading? What are you watching?
I feel like I'm not reading or watching anything at the moment because I'm kind of I'm doing a lot of client work, and so it's kind of like I'm kind of getting that mire. I'm getting that mire that coaches shouldn't get into, which is you're not creating enough time and space for learning. But I know this is a temporary thing whilst things are busy. Because I've just in my life I've moved country in the last year.
You're in South Africa now, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I was in the UK for the last 22 years. I moved last year in November. And I've been in South Africa for literally just over a year now, so which has been a great journey and a lot of learning to do in life. So I feel like maybe on the skill set side, I'm maybe dipping back a bit, but I think it's important to build a good team of people around you as well who keep you learning and keep you on your toes. At the end of the day, I don't do anything I do alone. It's all down to the people that I work with and bring on board to help me, because I can't do all of this on my own. I mean, that's it, to any of your agile coaches or anyone watching this, like folks, and it happens to us all. You get pulled in as the single sole agile person, right? You are the source of knowledge and you are the agile person, and be careful of being in that space, because maybe in the beginning while you're figuring it out, you're trying to figure out the lay of the land, but you need to get help on as soon as possible. Coaches need coaches, and those varying ideas in this complex spaces are really, really important, and so make sure you do that. But what's on my continuous learning journey? I mean, I think a lot of coaches are moving. There's a very natural move now into how we engage better in leadership. There's lots and lots of cool things out there. In particular, I've been really enjoying actually going a bit old school. There's John Maxwell leadership, and it's been pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
He does a lot. He does a lot of kind of teaching, like. He kind of built up all his policies from the Bible, effectively, and there's a lot of interesting stuff in historic books, and something around that I think we could leverage a bit more rather than trying to look for the new thing we're going to do. Yeah. Because actually there's a lot of principles. But whilst we as humans may have evolved technologically, in the way we actually operate, we haven't changed much in these last thousands of years. We still operate in a very similar way, right?
Great.
And it's really interesting to try and look back a little to learn a bit, and so there's something around that I'd certainly commend it. I'm having a lot of fun with the flight level stuff. Mike Burrows has something called Agenda Shift, which was very cool. Again, it's the wholehearted organization. There's a lot of how you interconnect departments, and there's a lot of good science and stuff he's bringing into that, so I commend that for you to have a look at. I went on a course with him probably about just over a year ago, and it was very, very insightful. So yeah, some really cool things in there. I'd certainly have a look at.
Awesome, thank you. Andy, how can people get hold of you? What's the best way to get hold of you?
You know what? I'm so bad on social media. I think the best way is probably from my LinkedIn. I was just like, what is my LinkedIn profile link? It's
is LinkedIn. It okay if we share it in the
happy to share it. It's linkedin.com/in/agile Andy. I got someone, I think I was at Perform Group in 2012, and everyone started calling me Agile Andy. And so as a joke, like when I went into contracting, I literally couldn't think of a name. So I was like, I'll just call myself that. And it's just like, it's just stuck. And I'm like, everyone probably thinks how pretentious he calls himself Agile Andy. But there's a lot of people, as long if your name ends in A,
yeah,
you're Agile that person. Alan Kelly, he's Agile Alan, and like I just think you can't escape it. So I just took it. and I own it, and it is what it is. Honestly, and the funniest thing, I'm the least agile person I know. I can hardly touch my toes. my chiropractor and my osteopath will highly disagree. The fact I'm called agile, Andy. I tell them I'm an agile coach, and they go, "What? You clearly aren't agile." So yeah. So
yeah,
I don't take it seriously, but it is.
Dad says, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "I'm an agile coach." He's like, "What?"
Yeah.
What is it like? Do you do like yoga? I'm like, not quite.
No, and the furthest thing from actual body agility that you could find. But the other place to find me is meraparagile.com. That's where I will be advertising my courses for 2025. And so if I can help you.
What sort of courses are you offering, Andy?
So I'm a professional Scrum trainer, so all of the courses from the professional Scrum catalog from scrum.org, I offer those. I also do custom courses if that's needed. So whatever's needed, I'm here to help, really.
Awesome, amazing. All right, well, we'll put these in the description for our viewers and listeners to get hold of you. Andy, it's been amazing. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us. And I'm hoping we're gonna, think of another topic to discuss very soon. I'll look forward to hearing from you, mate.
And thank you to you, Omar, because thank you for having me, number one. But number two, it's like you're keeping on the trend of the bald, beardy agile coach, right? But my good friend Sam Randall worked at Barclays internal audit for years, and she said, Do you have to have a beard and be bald and have glasses to be an agile coach? So I was like,
it's a prerequisite, mate. Yeah.
So at least you and me are really like carrying that fire right now. So thanks a lot for that.
And we've got the glasses as well.
Oh, there you go, man.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Andy. And guys, if you've enjoyed this, please do share and subscribe, and share the knowledge with your mates. Thank you so much, and have a great one. Until next time.
All the best.